of the United States. I hope you're doing well. My name is Arthur. This is the Apologia Center live Q&A, weekly Q&A. We do these on Mondays and Fridays, even though we are live every single day of the week. We're live on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Every single one of those days, we discuss various and different subjects. I must say, and I have to say, as you can tell, I got my Liverpool top on. 7-0. 7-0. 7-0. United didn't show up to play. And special shout out to Jerome. Where is he? What's up, folks? Alpha's in the house. Supper all day is in the house. Man, what a day it was yesterday. I have watched the highlights many times over. I've also seen videos of United fans literally crying on YouTube. I don't like to usually. I don't ever like to, in all seriousness, I don't like to celebrate the miseries of other people. But this is United, and we beat them at home, 7-0. Worst loss since 1931. Biggest loss. They've never lost more than 7-0. At the hands of Liverpool. Now we're 3 points behind fourth place Tottenham. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, there is a little wager here on the line. If Liverpool get top 4, Jerome's got to call in and apologize, and we got a game in hand. If we win that game in hand, goal difference puts us in fourth place, and I don't have to shave my beard. Well, assuming that's how the season ends. But it's very interesting. Liverpool have been playing really well ever since Jerome and I made that little wager. We'll see how the season ends. Arnold, how you doing? Guys, drop a comment, hit that like button. Let me know what's going on as we're going to enjoy today and have a conversation. Maybe have some friendly banter back and forth, some friendly back and forth. You can tell I really enjoy this sport. What up, Emil? How you doing, man? Buck says, shave it anyway. One of these days, I probably will, Buck, but not yet. I usually do that at least once a year. Once or twice a year, I like to say I have a moment of madness in which I get rid of the beard. How do you look without a beard? I look like myself without a beard. I prefer to have facial hair. Not very sure whether like this is very unkept actually. So my barber's way too busy. I gotta find and like yeah, it's gonna take a while. Arthur, there's a filter that removed your beard. You should use it and show us how you would look without a beard. You guys are hilarious. I thought they're actually I last year I remember actually doing it like shaving and then doing, I think it was last year, and then doing a stream without a beard, because I remember people commenting on it and saying, wow, man, didn't recognize you and this and that. But I looked for it and I can't find it for some reason. So it's probably in there somewhere. I've never seen anyone as anti-beard as Buck. I know, huh? It's so interesting. It's that, do Christians believe in the jinn? No. Yeah, I would just say no, because that is an Islamic doctrine. I want to look. I actually looked it up to see what an actual definition is. There we are. Encyclopedia Britannica, it actually puts it within Arabian mythology. Genie, plural jinn, is also called genie with a G in English. Arabic genie in Arabic mythology, a spirit inhabiting the earth but unseen by humans, capable of assuming various forms and exercising extraordinary powers. Beliefs in jinn was common in pre-Islamic Arabia, where they were thought to inspire poets and soothsayers. I should pull this up actually. Let me as regarding what I'm reading. That's always fun. I like this reading thing. Their existence was affirmed in the Quran, and they are conceptualized in Islam as creatures parallel to human beings who are capable of choosing between good and evil and must thus face eventual salvation or damnation. They are beings of smokeless flame by nature, in the same manner in which humans are said to be made of earth, and they cannot be seen by human beings. Trying to see what the difference is between jinn and angels. Jinn, especially through their association with with things unseen, have always been favorite figures in North African, Egyptian, Syrian, Persian, and Turkish folklore, and are the center of immense popular literature, appearing notably in The 1001 Nights. In India, in Indonesia, they have entered the local Muslim imagination by way of the Quranic descriptions of Arabic literature. Common folklore, jinn are capable of assuming human and animal form and are said to dwell in all conceivable and inanimate objects, stones, trees, ruins. Interesting. And underneath the earth, in the air, and in fire. They possess the bodily needs of human beings and can even be killed. That's interesting. They are free from all physical restraints. Jinn delight in punishing humans for any harm done to them. That's weird. Intentionally or unintentionally. Whoa, that's terrifying. And are said to be responsible for many diseases and all kinds of accidents. However, those human beings, knowing the proper magical procedure, can exploit the jinn to their advantage. To their advantage. Yeah, Christians don't. Yeah, this is not. This doesn't exist in Christian theology, and it's very, very different than the way Christians view angels. Pat has an interesting story about jinns. Really? What's up? What's up, brother? Does the Old Testament say you shouldn't worship rocks? And why do Muslims worship the black stone? Um, just to be gracious towards Muslims, as far as I know, if you go to any Muslim and say, hey, you guys worship the black stone, they're going to tell you, no, we don't. Stop saying that. Now, you could accuse them and or whatever, like say, no, you do because you do this and this and that. And they'll tell you, no, we worship none except God. And then you're just going to, I'm not very sure whether you're going to get much or far in having a decent conversation with a Muslim when you keep saying you worship a rock and they keep telling you, no, we don't. We worship God. Yeah, so, well, I'll stop there. Have you read the book Critical Quran by Robert Spencer? I have not. I have not. By the way, as far as I know, the Critical Quran is the Quran. Just with like what's the like textual criticism. Come on, There's no Amazon. I'm trying to see if there's like a little sneak peek of it in there. Okay, Google's got a book preview. So let's look at this actually. I'll have to zoom in for you guys. There we are. The critical Quran is designed to equip the English-speaking reader with a knowledge of the Quran and how it is interpreted in Islam, and to see how mainstream Islamic commentators understand the text, particularly its passages that are most problematic for non-Muslim readers, the exhortations to jihad warfare and Sharia provisions, the call for the denial of various rights to women, and the like. In numerous other editions of the Quran, these are obscured with apologetic intent. Here they are explained in full. This edition of the Islamic Holy Book also provides a general introduction to some of the problems with the text. So it's like a textual criticism / commentary on how it's been interpreted throughout history. This is also unusual, as for the Islamic scholarly tradition, such problems do not actually exist. The Quran is perfect, unchanging, and unchangeable, and its centrality in Islam cannot be overstated. The Quran, according to Muhammad Marmaduke Pickthall, an English convert to Islam who translated the Muslim holy book, is an inimitable symphony, the very sounds of which move men to tears and ecstasy. The Quran, explains the Islamic scholar Saeed Hussein Nasr, constitutes the alpha and the omega of the Islamic religion, in the sense that all that is Islamic, whether it be its laws, its thought, its spiritual and ethical teachings, and even its artistic manifestations, have their roots in the explicit or implicit teachings of the sacred texts. Yeah, wouldn't I mean I think I don't have it, I haven't read it, but I'd like to have this in my library as a reference. Just a reference book. Just, typically the reason why I would say it is because, I might want to pull it out and be like, oh, that's okay. So I'll give you an example. I've had conversations with Muslims, and let's pull it up. Actually, I want to pull up the Quran. Uh, before. And those of you guys who've thought about this stuff, and this is a passage that's come up. I'll tell you why. It's actually pretty. I think it's pretty cool with the whole singing and stuff. But okay, so the idea here: men are the caretakers of women, as men have been provisioned by Allah over women and tasked with supporting them financially. It's a very interesting translation. All righteous women are devoutly obedient and when alone, protective of what Allah has entrusted to them. And if you sense ill conduct from a woman, advise them first. Essentially, rebuke them or correct them. If they persist, do not share their beds, so refuse sex. So you rebuke and then you refuse sex. If they still persist, then discipline them. Now, it's very interesting. This translation is very interesting, right? Because number one, this isn't in the text. The gently is not in the text. This is a commentary by the translators. It's not here in the Arabic. Now, I don't know Arabic. Pretty sure it's not there. That's why it's written in that little parenthetical remark. Discipline them is very interesting because a lot of people would argue that it means to beat them. Like discipline is not there, right? And the gently there, even the translator of this text is essentially saying this has to do with physical nature. It seems to me that they're assuming that this is a physical discipline happening rather than like, whatever, go to your room and don't come out, something like that. But if they change their ways, do not be unjust to them. Surely Allah, Most High, all great, so on and so forth. Okay. So the question about this translation is like, so I had a long time ago, I was discipling a guy who is from Iraq and knew Arabic, and then I gave him an Arabic Quran and I said, read that to me. He read it to me, and then I said, okay, what does that word mean? He said, beat. I said, well, in the English it's translated as discipline them or beat them gently or something like that. Is there anything in the text? And he's like, no, there's nothing like that in the text. Now that's my personal kind of anecdotal story, you can say, and I'm sure scholars can go back and forth, but this, you see this in practice within Islam. But it's very interesting, right? Like you rebuke them, then you don't have sex with them, and then you beat them, and gently. I'm being very, very gracious here in regards to how these conversations go. Now, there's a footnote here. I want to read the footnote to you guys. By the way, this is Quran.com. Disciplining one's wife gently is the final resort. So you don't immediately do it, but it's at the end. The earliest commentators understood that this was to be light enough not to leave a mark. Should be done with nothing bigger than a toothstick. I'm going to show you guys something. trying to find something specific to show you guys, because I think it relates to this commentary. Keep it up, ML. Essentially, there's bundles of sticks. You can look this up and find it online, but there's bundles of sticks that you can buy in Islamic countries. In order, like, you use that to beat your wife. They're pretty expensive too. And they are definitely not the size of a toothstick. Okay, essentially like short sticks that they're like the root of a certain plant that like grows there, or like, yeah, the roots. I think they're the roots, but nonetheless, you guys can look that up yourself. So the earliest commentator, it's a toothstick, which I don't think has been practiced. I don't think that's true. The other thing is that I think there's a hadith where Aisha is speaking about like how Muslim women are like left black and blue, and they're beaten a lot more than other women, and should not be in the face. Okay. Prophet Muhammad said to his companions, "Do not beat the female servants of Allah." He said that honorable husbands do not beat their wives, and he himself never hit a woman or a servant. If a woman feels her husband is ill-behaved, then she can get help from the guardian or seek a divorce. The interesting thing here is that this commentary contradicts this statement. Right? When Muhammad says, Prophet Muhammad said to his companions, and I don't know where this reference is, but let's just take it. Do not beat the female servants of Allah. But here it says, discipline them gently. Right? Okay, 474. Let's go to 474. Hopefully, Allah, Alpha, this is not taking away from what our conversation is about. Okay, it is taking it away, as I assumed. Don't do that, please. Make sure we're on conversation. So yeah, I mean, you can go and look at that stuff yourself. So are demons? So demons are only fallen angels? There's a couple of different ideas, but generally, let's just say yes. In Iran, there are these fairy-like creatures that will obey you if you put a pin in their head. I have heard about this. This is word of mouth. Yeah. This was actually, it's very interesting because like Armenians in villages who don't know the Bible say these things about demons. They go, oh, this is how you trap a demon. They don't realize that it's coming, and I've heard this growing up. They don't realize that this is from Islamic theology and it has nothing to do with Christianity. Didn't the Gnostics have a bunch of bizarre demon stuff? Not an expert on Gnostic theology. I wouldn't be surprised, considering that Gnostics believed in these like continuous emanations of the divine gods and stuff like that. So, what's up, Derek? How you doing, brother? I wonder if the better approach would be to use the Kaaba to demonstrate pagan influence in Islam. It might be. It might be. The Kaaba, by the way. It really depends who you're talking to. I just don't think it makes any sense to go to a Muslim and be like, you guys worship this rock. And then they tell you, I don't worship that rock. And then you say, no, you do. Like, and then what? Right? It would be the same thing, by the way, in conversation when it comes to like with Catholics and stuff. It's a lot of Protestants will like jump the gun and be like, you guys worship Mary. And the Catholic person standing in front goes, no, we don't worship Mary. And this guy goes, yeah, you do. Your conversation hasn't, in my opinion, gone any further other than yes, you do, no, I don't, yes, you do, I don't. So it's probably not a very, now you can you can go on to define worship. You can go on to say certain things and say, well, this is a sort of homage that we shouldn't be paying other people because it like brings them up to like equality with God. I think that's fair. But just to start a conversation like that, it's not very wise if you want that conversation to continue. PT's reminding y'all to hit that like button, to subscribe, and to support us on Patreon. Moving on. Why is that creepy? I don't get that. Do you want to call in? Is that what you want to do? If you want to call in, you can. Do Muslims deny this, by the way? Do Muslims say that no, we didn't? I think the argument is, I could be wrong here. So if I am, guys, forgive me. But so take this with a pinch of salt or whatever. It seems to me that the Muslim argument would be something like, wow. Guys, I'm getting a really important phone call. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. I could not pick that up. Surprised that call actually came through. That was weird. All this stuff is on silent. You can read my lips. Okay. So yeah, I was gonna say in regards to the Kaaba, it seems like the argument that they're gonna present is gonna be yes, it was pagan at the time of Muhammad, but its origins aren't pagan. So originally, it was built and stuff like that by a prophet of God. As far as I know, they're gonna say it's Muhammad. Sorry, not Muhammad, Abraham. Um, and and then it was like taken over, perverted or like that by pagans, and then it was like taking it back from them. You guys, again, we have to respect people enough to hear them on their terms before we like launch these accusations. So for me, I would say, cool, that's the argument you're presenting. Let's see if that's the case. Like, do we have any evidence historically that Abraham built this or went there? Like, this narrative you're giving, is that the case or is it not the case? If it's the case, okay, cool, then it stands. If it's not the case, then it doesn't. Instead of just like jumping into this thing of being like, oh, you guys stole it from pagans. Because what they're going to say is, no, we reclaimed it from pagans. Now, you can call that revisionist history, you can call that all sorts of stuff, but you have to take them for their arguments if you want to have, if you're interested in actually having a healthy dialogue with people. If you're not interested in having a healthy dialogue with people, then I would just question your motivation about why have a dialogue with people in the first place. Like, just go live your life. Why are you wasting your time? Can you command demons to leave in the name of Jesus? Are they bound to leave? I think you can. Are they bound to leave? It's very interesting because Jesus has this whole situation that happens where his disciples can't command this demon to leave. And Jesus says something to the likes of, and there's some debate over this passage, over the wording of it, but some demons are need like prayer and fasting or prayer. It seems to be the case that some of this stuff is directly connected with a person's trust and faith and their spiritual kind of maturity or whatever. But yeah, are they bound to leave? It doesn't seem like it, that they're bound to leave, considering that there was demons the disciples couldn't cast out. Isn't there something about Muslim guys and like being commanded to drink breast milk? I may have that completely misunderstood though. There is, I'm not an expert on this stuff, guys, by the way. It seems like there is something in regards to breastfeeding adults. So from my understanding is that so that they become like your children, and you won't like have an extramarital affair with them. At least that's from this side. But I think there are some texts that speak about those texts being lost to history. The breastfeeding of adults being lost. Yeah, I agree, Arthur. Nobody is going to be responsive to an external critique. You can't be persuasive from an outsider perspective in almost any context. So yes and no. Yes and no, because I think so a critique, I think, or a challenge is a bit different to me than an accusation, especially an accusation that is like flatly, uh, at least on the face value, from that side being like rejected. So like just take Islam as an example. Like the Muslim comes in there and says there's only one God, there's no other gods, only everybody should only submit and bow to Allah. And if somebody comes in there and says you guys worship a rock, they're going to look at you and laugh and be like, dude, this is not even like, we can't even take this seriously, because the entire tenet of our religion is there's only one God and we should only worship him. So what are you on about here? Right? Like it would be equivalent to someone coming down and I hear this from Muslims who say, oh, Christians are polytheistic or tritheistic or something like that. And you kind of look at them and you go, that's just not true. We affirm monotheism, and then we have an explanation of the Trinity that maintains monotheism. And so what you're saying is just complete nonsense. Now, you could say your definition of the Trinity doesn't actually do a good job in maintaining monotheism. I think that's fair, but then you're gonna have a lot richer and better conversation than them just accusing Christians of being polytheistic or something, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. Not necessarily that it can't be like external or internal and stuff like that. I mean, you can externally critique things if the critiques fit the general narrative of whatever the worldview is. That's fine. We can read your lips and can see your expressions. Hopefully, you're not receiving bad news. No, it's not bad news. It's just annoying news. It seems as though a name is required to cast out a demon. I'm not very sure whether I would say it's required, because we see Jesus casting out demons and without asking for any like identification. But I know a lot of people do that and ask for names or whatever because they see it in the Bible. Buck's never heard that story, so we'll put it up for you, Buck, and we'll look at it. It's weird. I don't want that. Okay, Buck, for you. So this is Mark chapter 9, verse 34. Sorry, 14, not 34. And when the disciples, and when they came to the disciples, this is, they're coming down the Mount of Transfiguration. When they came to the disciples, they saw a great crowd around them and scribes arguing with them. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. And he said to them, "What are you arguing about with them?" And someone from the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him. And when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" And he said, "From childhood. And it has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for those who believe." Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, "I believe, help my unbelief." And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out, and the boy was like a corpse, as if dead. So that most of them said, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by the hand, lifted him up, and he arose. And when he had entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast it out?" And he said to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer." Some manuscripts will have prayer and fasting. That's where the debate is that I was telling you guys about. So except prayer, let's see if the commentary has this in there. So this seems to refer to a prayer of the petitioner, the father in this instance, rather than the exorcist. Although it is possible that the disciples were attempting to exorcise the demon without praying, just using a command. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say. Buck, you wanted to get a answer to that, and I gave it. Hang in there. Hang up there, bro. Hang up. Hang up. Don't hang up. I'm not telling you to hang up. I'm just saying hang on. Confusion. You on your phone?
I'm on my phone, yeah, because yeah, my
Hang
wife's
on.
working.
Let me make
I
you
just got
tall.
home.
9:16. There we are. So we can see you fully. Um,
Very well.
there you go. What's up, bro?
Right on. Have I told you? I told you the test I gave my students, right? The
Yes,
style I
the
gave
one
them,
person test.
the one person test. And guess what I'm doing this time?
What?
To the chat. So I'm gonna give them a test. A lot of these are also life lessons, you know. So
As
I want to
test
give the
good test
test.
should be.
Yeah, I want to give them a test to one student that I have a hunch does not want to take the test, will
Oh,
not take it seriously. And I would like the life lesson for them to learn without me saying it is sometimes in life, no matter how much you want to help your classmates study and learn, their uh, undisciplined character or characteristic that they're going to display right then and there or for that month will get you to fail. And I feel like that speaks into our life sometimes where sometimes we try to do things um, but other people's lack of action will affect us negatively. And sometimes we don't have control over that. And I want them to understand that these things are going to happen in life. I'm going to give them a real, like a minor test, you know, and that's one of the things that I want them to get out of it. So,
interesting.
um, but who knows? But who knows? Maybe they teach him hard. The requirement is that the one person taking the test is not allowed to study the test on their own. They only are allowed to do it in community.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yes, life lessons all around. It's gonna
As
be
it
nice.
should be.
Yeah.
Let me jump into some of these. Coronavirus is more dangerous than coronavirus. Okay. Sapera all day. I mean, you sort just described what I mean by internal critique. Okay, the critique has to fit within the narrative of the worldview you're criticizing. Otherwise, it won't matter much. Yeah, I generally agree with that. By the way, on the topic of demons, do you think there's any value in reading Catholic writings on exorcism? Seems like they have a monopoly in that area. Derek, yes, I think there's some value in that. Um, Partly because I think Catholics have been generally pretty good at keeping a record, and then also they're pretty good at um, like before they jump the exorcism gun, you could say like, oh, this is a demon. They ask serious questions of like whether this is a mental illness or whatever, right? Um, because I know they bring forget. I remember watching a video with actually a Catholic exorcist. I think this might be on Capturing Christianity's channel. where the guy's essentially saying like you got to get approval from here, 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 and here in order before that stuff happened. I think this stuff's really gonna come to the surface right now because I just saw a ad for a video that Russell Crowe is doing. It's a video. It's a movie that Russell Crowe has done. It's gonna come out soon, and I think it is based on the true story. And again, Hollywood will do all sorts of weird stuff, but it's based on a true story of who this guy that was called the Pope's exorcist. Like he was the main exorcist for the Catholic Church. And so I watched that and I went through the YouTube, rabbit hole and watched a bunch of videos. And it seems like they did like some kind of a documentary with him when he was alive, and they videotaped some like actual exorcisms that he was doing, which I watched parts of. At least what I could find. So it's very interesting to, at the very least, it's interesting enough to read. I would put it in the same category as whether you would read someone like an Aquinas. Like if I'm going to read, and I think we should, theologians that identified, at the very least, self-identified themselves as Catholic, even though some people might be like, well, that's different, modern Catholics versus this and that, whatever. I wouldn't mind looking at literature from exorcists from Catholicism.
But for me, I'd first go to. So you answered the question directly, but I think I'd first go to the etymology of demons and maybe do a little research on first century Judaism, maybe a little bit on the Second Temple to see the origin of that name, where it came from, what the Jewish people thought about that name, what did Jesus think about demons, and then after I had built that, like what demon means in that culture, how they understood it, then I'd probably venture to what Catholics had to say. Would you agree?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree because then you're doing a biblical study. What you're doing is essentially do your hermeneutics. His question was like most
Specific,
of that stuff
yeah,
is like
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
established or something like that. So yeah, I mean, when you're studying your Bible and then you see someone like, for example, the word demon possessed. What a lot of people don't know that terminology is actually not in the Bible. The word is demonized, and it's used in multiple ways. Like the Greek word is demonized, and that could be like various kinds of influence or whatever. But again, like where do demons come from? What are demons? How were exorcists operating in Jesus' day? There are exorcists in the days of Jesus. Think about the sons of Sceva in the book of Acts. And what they're trying to do, right? Like the sons of Sceva are trying to cast out these demons, but for some reason they think that it's okay for them to proclaim the name of Jesus that Paul preaches. It's not even like which in their mind it seems to be that there's a greater authority than us, in this case, Paul and Jesus. And if we bring them into the picture, we'll be able to do this incantation sort of thing. Which doesn't work, right? Like the demon-possessed guy, I think, beats him up, and they run away like half naked.
Oh, you're talking about that one, yeah? Is it where he goes like, "Paul I know of and Jesus I know, but who are you?"
Correct.
Or something like that? Yeah,
Sorry, I don't know
that's
what's
a
going on with
strong. That's a
my
strong
voice.
response. I remember when I was younger and I was a lot more arrogant, and I wanted to fight demons because I was having like all these issues, and I was like, bring him on. And I think you have a story like that too, by the way. Like I was like, bring him on, and I'm like, how would I respond to a demon if he said that? I'm like, I will respond with Galatians 2:20. This is who I am. I have been crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives within me. Man,
Yeah. Well, I would say,
no
Emma,
challenge.
one of the things is that no, I wouldn't say that's not necessarily wrong, but
No,
these guys don't seem to be Christians. These sons of Sceva
no.
don't seem to be Christians, right? Like and that's where maybe the issue comes in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, arrogance. I mean, even there's a warning, right? Even Michael the archangel in his battle against Satan said, "The Lord rebuke you." This is one of those like interesting passages. What is it, in Jude or Peter?
Well,
Huh?
that's correct. I don't recall that, to be honest with you.
Let me pull it up. So,
That's I would love to
um,
see this. Um, Lord rebuke you, Jude
is
9.
it might be, yeah. That sounds about right.
But I have to see if that's the right context.
Yeah, so it
So,
is.
but
So
when
that's the
Michael
text.
the
Okay, let me pull it.
archangel
Yeah, let me pull up the
contending with the
text.
devil.
Hang on, let me pull
Go
the
ahead. Go
text
ahead.
up. Okay, so sorry, you're not in this picture. And there's a big lag for some reason on my computer. I don't know what's going on. I just updated the software. Okay, so let me go back a couple of verses and
Makes
read
sense.
it. So verse 5. Now I want to remind you, although you once fully knew it, that Jesus, who saved a people out of the land of Egypt. By the way, anybody that doubts that the Bible teaches that Jesus is God or Yahweh should pay very close attention to what I just read.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jude very clearly identifies Jesus as the one who saved the people from Egypt.
Amen.
So Jesus, who saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe. Again, this is like all the stuff God is doing in the Exodus, and this guy says it's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains. By the way, who has kept in eternal chains? Jesus. Under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desire, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire. I'm making statements that are kind of outside of the scope of what we're talking about, but it's important because, like, for example, the whole LGBTQ kind of conversation, one of the arguments that a lot of LGBTQ affirming theologians would suggest is that what's happening at Sodom and Gomorrah has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with like hospitality and stuff. Emil, I'm sure you've heard of these sort of
Yeah, there's
arguments.
6 verses that pertain to what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. One of which talks about it being sexual, and this is the one.
Yeah. So here's a good one where Jude immediately. And
Yeah.
by the way, he doesn't just say sexual immorality.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just some people would say, well, yeah, because they're trying to rape these angels. But it also says they pursued unnatural desire. Again, the argument there could be that the unnatural there has to do with like them wanting angels. The question is that nobody knew these were angels. That's the response. Like Job didn't even know they're angels. So serve as an example. Regardless, that's just okay. Yet in like manner, these people, relying on their dreams, defile the flesh, reject authority, and blaspheme the glorious ones. Now, this is talking about individuals in Jude's day that he's writing about. He says, in like manner, like these people in Sodom and Gomorrah, they're relying on their dreams. They defile the flesh, reject authority, and blaspheme the glorious ones. Glorious ones seems to be a reference to divine beings. But here's a passage we were talking about. When the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, was disputing about Moses' body or the body of Moses. Now, this is not found in the Bible, by the way, this text. Let me see. I want to give you a proper quotation as to where this is found. So this is in First Enoch 40. You see this here? So First Enoch 40, verse 9, 71, 8 to 9. Okay? So that he's quoting Enoch. And again, I'm not going to go into like all the details about why he's quoting Enoch and why Jude and nice. Peter quote that stuff. No, it's just we're not talking about that. That's why. But he is.
He is.
What he says is, but when the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, was disputing about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce a blasphemous judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." So this is again this takes us back, Emil, I guess, to this idea of like having our priorities, understanding properly, like in set order as to who's really the one doing the commanding, who's really in control, who's really the boss of the situation rather than us. But yeah. Let me see.
I can't see the questions, by the way. So
yeah, I know. I don't know why you're supposed to. Oh, maybe it's because you're on your phone.
the phone, yeah, like on my laptop, I could see it.
Okay.
It has an interface on the right side.
So Derek, if you want to come back with anything as a backup question to that, feel free. By the way, have you guys noticed that Jerome hasn't been in the chat today? Just saying, he might be in hiding.
Oh, I'm guessing he's not a Liverpool fan?
He is not.
I see.
I want to say he's an Arsenal fan, if I remember right. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's a United fan. But nonetheless,
yeah,
Liverpool have crept in closer and closer to that fourth place spot, and the manner in which they won yesterday was just phenomenal. 7, no, just a little reminder. So the kid has epilepsy. So it's very interesting, right? Because it's very clearly identified as epilepsy, but not just epilepsy. So the kid falls over, foams at the mouth, rolls around, and on multiple occasions, ever since he was a kid, the spirit would seize him and then would try to throw him into fire or water. I would assume either to burn him or to drown him, because it seems like there's a thing there. Suicide. One of the things I should say here, Buck, because these are important parts of this conversation. The Bible will identify certain sicknesses with demonic activity, but that doesn't mean it's always the case with that. For example, there's a scene where there's a woman who's bent over, and then it says Satan has had her bound in that position. Like, that doesn't mean everybody who's got like back issues or whatever like that is bent over like that is demon possessed. And this is where people do wrong hermeneutics and then come up with really, really dumb, stupid interpretations. For example, like anybody who has epilepsy, like that, people have naturally epilepsy. There's a number of ways we know that, like the way I think the Bible explains it, where you can draw out where it's not just like a physical ailment someone has. Even though Jesus heals just physical ailments, and the Bible very clearly tells you which one's a physical ailment and which one is not. It's important. Is that this child seems to be mute as well. Now, does that mean anybody who's mute is demon possessed? No. Right? Like, it doesn't mean any of that stuff. It's just telling you this is the situation of this child in that context. One of the issues that has happened over the centuries and over time, I guess even in the modern churches, it's just people reading something and then going, "Oh, someone has epilepsy, they're demon possessed. Oh, someone has this, they're mute or they're deaf, therefore they're demon possessed." It's like, that's just stupid. That is really, really, really bad hermeneutics. Correct. There's blind people Jesus heals who it never says they're demons or anything like that, right?
Right.
So there's the Bible distinguishes between physical ailments and non-physical or physical ailments, along with that of like spiritual kind of entities behind it. So just don't walk away, I guess, having those beliefs. And anybody who says those things, by the way, anybody who just identifies any kind of a physical ailment with a demon all the time, always, I would just say, don't listen to that person. They're wrong.
Yeah, don't.
Because their hermeneutics are wrong, and then who knows what else they're just like destroying when it comes to their study. By the way, one doesn't even need to believe these things. Like, you can have an individual who's an atheist, who's just a biblical scholar, who will sit there and say, yes, the Bible does do this kind of a presentation where there's physical ailments that are just physical ailments. Okay? There's physical ailments that are like a result of natural whatever phenomenon, sickness and X, Y, and Z. There could be physical ailments that are possibly as a result of sin or whatever like that. And then there could be physical ailments that are a result of demonic activity. Like, all of it is there. And to claim one or the other and supernatural I guess, knowledge over. Somebody comes, let's just say, and has, let's just use biblical examples. Somebody comes in who's bent over, like that woman is, and then you go, "Oh yeah, Satan." It's like, do you know how many grandmothers I know that are bent over? Like,
Poor grandmas, man.
hey, they've had
People
a
are
hard
saying they're
life.
of Satan.
They've had a hard life.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah,
I recently go ahead.
part of that is actually a little frustrating to me because I'm not going to say all Christians. I'm not going to say most Christians. I don't think that language is helpful.
Some.
But we've all encountered Christians who say things that just they don't know what they're talking about. I sometimes say things that's incorrect. You know what I mean? Like we can't. That's what we have to learn to really analyze what we believe, what the text really says, do our homework before we say things like that, because these are the reasons why these so when these Christians say a lot of these things, like, oh, this person must be demon possessed, their friends are hearing that. Their friends are hearing that from middle school. They're hearing what they're saying in high school. They're hearing what their friends are saying in college. And this is the image that a lot of these people might be getting about Christians. Like, we don't know what we're talking about. We're loony. We're lunatics. Like, what are we saying? Oh, this person has a minor ailment, therefore they're demon possessed. I've been here. I heard that for the past like 3 years. By the way, close friends of mine have said this too, and I corrected them. I'm like, hey, look, you're young in your faith. You just listen up, man. This is not the case. Theologically, biblically speaking, you can't
Correct.
just throw out these things as if that's the case. So, Christians, from my heart, I always like to say this: do your due diligence. Be like the Bereans. Study the scriptures hard. Study it well. And if it's one thing I encourage you guys to study above all, of course, it's the Word of God. It's your hermeneutics, how to read the Bible.
Correct.
That's really important. I think Derek said, Westminster Derek said something.
Yeah, he wrote 1 Peter 3:19. Do you take the position that the spirits are spirits of men, demons cast into prison? Let me actually pull it
Let's
up.
look at the context together. Yeah.
First Peter, and I want to be able to pull you in on. Let me see. I might be able.
Okay.
But hang on, I want to see if I can pull Emil into this as well. I think I can.
I can hop off if it
No,
makes
no,
it
no,
easier.
no.
I can hop
I
off.
want to have you on the screen.
Okay.
When I'm looking at the Bible, I want you on the screen, like for people to see you as well.
Sure.
Give me 1 second.
That's fine. I'm trying to look at the context while you're doing this.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. There's Emil. Okay, I brought Emil in. Okay, let's lock it so I don't do weird stuff because there's a lag. Okay. So chapter 3, verse 19. Where are we? Okay, we'll read with verse 18. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he went and proclaimed the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah. So the qualifier there, I think, pretty clearly tells us that the spirits in conversation here are human beings. These are the individuals in Noah's day. Right?
I'm just trying to see if the Greek says anything specific. No.
No, it just means spirit. To the spirits in those days,
Yeah,
because
just
they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. Baptism, which corresponds to this now, so on and so forth. Okay. So there is an aspect of this, and I know Heiser has done, but he's got a pretty decent thing on this, where Mike Heiser speaks about, like, this is proclamation language to demons, where Jesus is declaring victory over demons. Um, so I would say the context seems to suggest to me that these are individuals who did not obey in the days of Noah, and it could still be that it's victory being proclaimed to rebellious humans and angels that Christ has won. But it is a huge study. I think this passage is one of those like really complicated things to study, where folks have to look at whatever the 3-4 different views on it and then compare them. What it is not saying is that Jesus went to these people and gave them a second chance and preached the gospel to them for salvation, which some people think that's what it's saying. It's very clearly, in my opinion, it's not saying that. It could also be saying that it's Jesus doing the preaching through Noah to those in Noah's day, essentially preaching. That's one of the interpretations, essentially preaching a gospel message, a good news message, because he goes on to talk about baptism and the water. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. That and like another thing, my professor Joshua Grauman had mentioned is that um, don't forget the rainbow and what it means in Hebrew, right? I mean, this is one of many different perspectives, but his perspective was one of the many meanings of the rainbow is not just a promise that he's never going to do that, destroy humanity again with water, with the world, with the flood, but that bow that rainbow is, my teacher was saying, is representative of a bow, like archery, where it's a representation of God had won this war, this battle. He is the one that's victorious, and I think it makes sense in the context of what was going on with the sons of man, the Nephilim, a lot of the craziness that was going on between Genesis 3 and 11 before Abraham. So I think there's a case to be made in that regard, and if we read that into this text, I think that makes a little bit of sense. What is he proclaiming to the spirits in prison?
Yeah,
Right?
so
If he's
it's
proclaiming
because
victory,
in
we could.
Enoch it's interesting, and Heiser really has a good explanation of this. But where in Enoch there's essentially like these locked up sons of God or locked up deities, not deities, the divine beings, are asking Enoch to like write a letter to God to have mercy on them, and the response is no, you've lost. You're not going to be freed. You're there, and so that's where Heiser brings in all this detail, right? He's so good at that.
Yeah.
There's something that was posted here that I want to address. Okay, I recently heard someone cite Ecclesiastes 4:16 and Revelation 1:7 as proof text for reincarnation.
Is he using that word interchangeably, resurrection, or is he actually saying
No. He means
reincarnation?
reincarnation, like Eastern
Okay, so that's
reincarnation.
different.
By the way, Ecclesiastes 4, verse 16 reads as this: there was no end of all the people, all of whom he led. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and striving after the wind. I'm
What?
confused
Can you
how
read that again?
I'm confused as to how someone would take this text and think it's the reincarnation. But I'm
Yeah, can you read
assuming
that again?
it's there is no end of all the people. Let me read like
Okay. I
some
think that's the
verses.
part.
Okay, let's start with verse 13. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king, who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been born poor. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end to all the people. This statement is about like how large the crowd is, not like eternity. There's no end to people, right? There's no end to all the people, all of whom he led. Who led? The king. There are just a lot of them. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him, will not rejoice in the king. Surely this also is vanity and striving after the wind. Like, this just talks about like even leading very large groups is vanity under the is vanity under the sun and striving after the wind. Again, people need to read and pay attention just a little. Revelation 1, this is a funny one. Revelation 1:7 says, behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will wail on account of him. Even so, amen. How does that have anything to do with reincarnation when it's talking about Jesus coming back?
You sure they're not using it interchangeably? I know they don't mean the same thing, but what if this person
Reincarnation as opposed to what? Resurrection?
Yeah, like I know they're different things, but I'm saying, is the person in your chat using them interchangeably? He's just using the wrong word.
I don't know. Righteous through Christ. Comment on that. Let me know if they meant reincarnation, like the way I'm understanding reincarnation. Because if they are, then they need to learn how to read.
Yeah, because
whoever this person was.
Yeah.
My childhood friend's sister once had an entity hanging around her that scared her. My stepdad, who is Mormon, went to bless her, and she said the entity was laughing. A Catholic priest got rid of it. Interesting.
Amateur apologist. If I'm not mistaken, you might be referring to Hebrews.
Wait, hang on, bro. I'm scrolling through comments. Don't do this. We'll get to amateur apologists. There's a lot of people ahead of them. Don't Unitarians say that those verses are referring to Jesus as the Son of Man? Character that does a lot of stuff for God, or am I misremembering that? Sorry, Sapere, I don't know what I said that made you remember that. Hey, this is okay. Let's address this. Outsiders are supposed to see you as loony, right? The gospel is foolishness to those who are perishing, after all. You said people think we're loony.
No, you're not supposed to be looked at loony. Why would you? We have some people that look like that way.
The passage he's quoting is the gospel is foolishness to those who are perishing.
Yeah, because it's a response to the Greeks who think they're wise. He's not. I don't think he's making a statement, like a universal statement that it's foolishness. Period. The Greeks think they have wisdom, and the gospel is foolishness to them. It doesn't make sense to them.
And
the gospel is not foolishness to Jews.
It's a stumbling block to the Jew, but it's foolishness, right, to the Greeks. So the question to ask, by the way, again, hermeneutics matters quite a bit. It's because people who are claiming that God has spoken to them, the Jew who has the law, who in Paul's context would have been arrogant against the gospel, because it's like, we have the law, we keep the law, and you're telling us that salvation comes by believing in Jesus. This is a stumbling block for them. And to the Greeks who are claiming to be wise and knowledgeable, right? All the stuff that goes into that, he says it's foolishness because they're worshiping a God who died on a cross.
Yeah, in many ways, it's foolishness to them. In many ways.
Yeah,
there's probably a lot of issues that they're having.
And to plenty of people, it's foolishness because it's like, oh, you guys worship this weak deity, like he became a human and a baby and was crucified. That doesn't seem like God.
But
context matters. VKG.
It does.
VKG says, I'm sorry if these are repeat questions. You don't have to be sorry, man. You probably talked about this many times before. I'm not sure if I have. I have no idea how we ended up. Well, I do have an idea. I think it was someone who said about like whether Christians believe in jinn. That's how we got here. But I was wondering if angels and demons materialize in human form and how God controls the world. Okay, I'm not sure whether you're asking two different sorts of questions or one that's connected in the sense of like how God controls that if they were to manifest. But let me give it a go. If you want to qualify that, do so. Do angels and demons materialize in human form? We see in the Bible where angels materialize in human form. I'm not very sure whether we see demons do that. Unless somebody can think of a text and let me know. The Bible also says, I think in reference to what's going on with Abraham, is at the front of his tent, and Yahweh shows up, and there's two angels with him who end up going to Sodom and Gomorrah, by the way, and they eat together and stuff. So do they materialize in human form? It seems to be the case. Now, it could be argued that these demons, quote unquote, the sons of God that Heiser argues for, materialized themselves in human form and had sex with women and had babies. So that could be an argument that's presented, contrary to what I said in regards to, I don't think we see it in the Bible. And then the Bible also says, make sure that you entertain strangers, because some, in doing so, have entertained angels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's there. So yeah, they can materialize in human form. I'm not very sure whether I can just say it's a norm and it happens all the time. I don't think we get anything like that, but we just see it happening in the Bible. There's no teaching on it. It's very important to distinguish between things that we see in the Bible as opposed to those things being teachings in the Bible. Okay. And then in regards to how God controls the world, that's a really, really big question you're asking me. I think God is in control of the world, meaning he's sovereign. Nothing happens outside of God's allowance or his will.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say that God controls the world, meaning that people don't have free will or agency or whatever like that, and he's just like kind of a puppeteer. But he allows for things to happen, and he's in control of the world. Now, you're asking me how God does that. But very simply, I guess my response would be by his great and magnificent power, his omnipotence, and his omniscience, him being all-knowing.
Mm-hmm.
You can even add his goodness to that. But I don't know what you mean by how.
And don't forget,
yeah.
and don't forget, he bound up the strong man in Matthew, right? Before a man enters a strong man's house, he has to bind them up, and this is the
Yep.
context of Satan.
Demonic.
So, yeah.
Correct. If so, which part of the Bible talks about this? So I think I quoted the ones that I thought about. I'm thinking this is not part of the Bible and is God's personal business. Do you mean in regards to how he controls the world? I don't think the Bible gives any explanation to that. I think the Bible just assumes that God is sovereign over all things. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's various passages we can quote where that's clearly stated. Okay, amateur apologist. Peter talks about being nice to people because, okay, and you may be, yes, that's the passage I quoted, right? I don't think it means being nice. He says entertain. Hey, okay, we spoke about that. I hadn't seen this comment, but I guess good job. There are other occasions, maybe Emily and Arthur can add to that. That's pretty good. Matthew 11:7-14, emphasize on 14, is the common one people go to for reincarnation. John the Baptist is the new Elijah. Correct. I've heard that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Is the new Elijah is.
1 Corinthians 2:14. They also cannot understand the things that come from the Spirit of God. I think this has to do with the whole foolishness conversation. It's foolishness also to non-believers, people who say things like zombie Jesus. You know, I can't take these people like seriously. Well, people who make comments like that. I just really
What
can't.
they say?
Folks who like just talk about Jesus as being a zombie. It's like, if you don't know what the definition of a zombie is and what Christians mean when they talk about the resurrection, just don't talk about it. Like, just shut your mouth and go do something else with your life.
Yeah.
Like, look, man. Here's, and I mean this in all. I was sitting down and thinking the other day, and so I'm like, I've mentioned before that I'm turning 38 this year, and I'm like, dude, like, how much do I have? Like, ideally, how long do I have to live? Like a decent life. What do you think, Emil? Try to put your emotions
Let's
out of
say
this.
42 years.
Okay, so what is that, 80? Yeah, that gets me to the 80.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I have a dad, and my dad's in his late 70s. And I'm like, the reason why I was thinking about it is because I was having a conversation with my son, and I was like, okay, because my son loves to do this thing where he's like, when I'm 16, you're gonna be this old. When I'm 24, you're gonna be this old. And so this is one of those conversations we're having, and I was like, okay, like this is what I have, right? And like I'm almost that. What you said, like 42 is 4 years for me. It's like if I'm gonna sit there and just like talk about stupid stuff and focus my attention on things like zombie Jesus and this and that, it's like, dude, just you have a very limited time. There's a lot better things you can be spending your time on. Like,
Hmm.
like, don't agree
Yeah.
with me. Don't believe the stuff I'm believing. Like, I want you to, but also be like fair in your critique. And then if you're not going to be, go do something else with your life. It's short. Other than the fact that you could just die at any moment. We're not guaranteed. Like, I'm not guaranteed that 40 whatever years that Emil just gave me. Right? Like, I just have no guarantee of that. It's like
Hmm.
I have friends that have died, guys. That were friends of mine when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, 20. Like, I've seen that. Before they were
Hmm.
40, they passed away. We don't have much time. We live, by the way, we live, maybe this is like an existential kind of conversation now that we're switching into, but we live in such a way where like we're just like guaranteed all this stuff. We are
Before,
very, very weak considering all the elements and considering time. And we should
mhm.
not be arrogant like that.
Before my phone dies, I wanted to add, and I also have to go celebrate my anniversary with my wife. So,
Dude,
while we're on this,
happy anniversary. Like,
don't
dude,
say it like that. Um,
why?
I just wanted to add on,
Don't say that.
I wanted to add on what you were saying, just as an encouragement to your audience, guys. He's right. Honestly, this isn't whatever I'm gonna say. Don't let it induce any anxiety. I just want to give you my quick experience. Uh, I come home every day recently, these past few months, exhausted. Before, like a couple years back, I would Arthur would know this. At night times, I'll play some video games with my friends. But as of late, as of many months, I come home exhausted because I kind of mapped out my life and said, hey, I want to be happy when I see Jesus. I don't want to be afraid. I don't. I do not want to be in fear. I want to be prepared, as I believe James talks about. So I'm like, what am I doing with my time? And I thought about it. I was like, okay, in the past, I would go crazy. I would throw away my TV and do like this, like I'll go evangelize. That's not what I'm telling you guys to do. What I'm telling you guys to do is just look at the words love, and to really live for your the people that you love around you, for the kingdom of God. You will come home and you'll be exhausted when you know you have the responsibilities to take care of. I literally I take care of children because I'm a teacher. I teach kids. So I prepare for them, I teach them, I'm exhausted. I go home and I show love and respect to my wife. I clean around the house. I literally clean around the house. I do the laundry, I take care of my stuff. I leave that and I'm with my Bible study brothers, and I try to be the best, most reliable and responsible brother I can be for them, for the sake of our growth. I don't even go home anymore. I just go to Flavius's house, which is my father-in-law, for you guys don't know, because I want to do things that are good for this world. Like we're trying to produce things together now. We're trying to become blacksmiths, if you will, like where we're purchasing the parts. We want to produce things for the world, and maybe even produce things for our brothers.
Hmm.
Literally, like produce things that can be helpful, like
Like
whatever
a
tools
sword.
that they need. Like, absolutely. Like I thought about it. I was like, I could give Arthur a high quality, well made sword some years down the line. And these things are cool. These things are awesome to do. Besides just sitting down and doing um, less things, you know what I mean? So, guys, what I'm essentially trying to say is count your time. Don't get too anxious, but just come home exhausted. Do things that are good for humanity and for the
Yeah.
kingdom. It doesn't have to be spiritual, but just do things that are good for humanity.
Yeah, well,
And I
wouldn't
guarantee you'll
distinguish.
be
Like, I would
yeah.
say that's still spiritual. I really would. Um, I think that's proper thinking. I think that's spiritual thinking. So when I spend time with my kids, that's spiritual.
Mhm.
Like, I'm being a father that God's called me to be. Like, sometimes people distinguish between these things. You know, like loving your brothers and
Yeah,
sisters
like they
and
have to go
creating people.
evangelize
Yeah,
because that's
yeah, yeah.
only
Like,
spiritual.
that's the only
Yeah.
spiritual to do is like preach. It's like that's not true. That is just
Or I could only serve at church. That's the only spiritual thing. Like it's
correct.
not the. I honestly think blacksmithing could be a spiritual thing.
You sure
Like in a
you better
way,
hope so.
absolutely. So guys, with that said, I do have my phone's gonna
Very
die. I
nice.
have to
I'm
go.
looking
It's my
forward for my
anniversary.
Braveheart sword. By the way, now.
Send me a type you want,
Dude,
once we
it's
finish learning
bad.
it, I'll
It's a
never forget it.
humongous sword. It's
Get out of here, man. See you. Get out of here. Take care, chat. It was fun talking
see,
with you guys.
happy anniversary.
See ya. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, guys. It's one of my dream swords. Um, let's jump into these things. Well, with regards to the Son of Man Unitarian comment I made, I was referring to what you said about the passage describing Jesus as doing the stuff from Exodus. Going back to that comment, by the way. Refer to Jesus as the Son of Man character that does a lot of that's not just a Unitarian thing. I guess that's where my confusion came in because I think you can. There's plenty of stuff to argue. It's like Jesus in what we see, what we generally call Christophanies, is that this is Jesus in the Old Testament appearing in various ways, unless there's something beyond that Unitarians argue for that other Christians don't. And yeah, so that's Christophanies within theology. It's like Jesus in the Old Testament. Can you elaborate on the difference between what the Bible says and what the Bible teaches that you just said? So yeah. By the way, how are you, Christian? Um, yeah. So one of the things that we do in biblical hermeneutics is to distinguish between those things that are descriptive and those things that are prescriptive. So a descriptive thing would be exactly what the word means. It's something being described. Jesus went to Jerusalem, like a statement of that sort, right? I'm making it easy. So that's a descriptive statement. That's not a teaching. That's not Luke telling me to get up and go to Jerusalem or telling all Christians to get up and go to Jerusalem. What Luke is doing is telling us that Jesus went to Jerusalem. Or say like when maybe a more complicated one. Jesus heals this guy where he spits on the ground and then he makes mud with his hands, right? And then he puts it on the guy's eyes. And some people have actually maybe tried this. It's like nobody in there, nobody should think that this is a way to heal blind people. It's just telling us something Jesus did, and at that, it's a pretty weird thing that Jesus is doing, right? So that's a descriptive statement, where a prescriptive one would be like, go and do likewise. Why aren't you doing this? Right? Like, so it is prescribing something to you, right? Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Prescription, right? So that would be the difference. And then whenever we're reading our Bibles, we ought to know whether something is descriptive or prescriptive, because prescriptive things tend to be things that we ought to put into practice, whereas opposed to descriptive things being things that we can learn about God and people and others, but they're not necessarily teachings as to us living that way, unless it's taken and then turned into a teaching, right? Which isn't very often. But yeah, there you go, Christian. By the way, guys, let me do a little advertisement here. If you're watching this and enjoying it, and you actually enjoy what we do and you regularly join us, we'd love for you to become a member of our community, that you would come and be a patron. If you go to patreon.com/Apologia Center, you can become a patron, and you should become a patron. I'll tell you why you should become a patron, because you get a bunch of really cool perks. The $5 tier is going to get you a newsletter that's essentially information about what we do on a regular. And then all the other perks, all the other tiers will get you certain things. You should go check it out. At the very least, go to patreon.com/Apologia Center. But one of the things that we're going to add very soon, as a matter of fact, I'm working on this in regards to scheduling wise, my personal schedule to do this, is we're going to start a once a week study through the book of Ecclesiastes just for patrons. And that's going to be for $5 and up. So everybody on Patreon will have access to that. And that's Patreon only content. And then again, we're going to add some other things in regards to discounts for merch and all that. So go ahead and become a patron. Your support means quite a bit for us. Appreciate it. If I ever make a zombie Jesus commentary, you shouldn't take it seriously, because I wouldn't mean it seriously. Well, then don't. I mean, I've seen people make arguments and then use that kind of language in their arguments. Like, I can't take your argument seriously because look what you're trying to see. Okay. Dat is een stop. Would you say that Paul, when talking about his pre-conversion life, Romans 7:14-25, is describing a state in which there is free will? Would he not affirm that his will was absolutely enslaved? Would I say that? I'm not sure whether I would say that or not, or whether I would even take that as a teaching on free will. I wouldn't. I partly because it specifically has to do with like obeying the law and stuff. It's not general enough for me to conclude things about like having free will in regards to like raising your arm and putting it down, or smacking someone upside the head and not. I think he's making a point in regards to the law and obedience to the law and knowing what is good and not doing it. And I wouldn't take this to be some kind of a conversation about free will. I mean, maybe you can take certain things from it, and then apply it to, say, how depravity or our sin nature, right, impacts us. You can do that. I think there's room to do that, but I just wouldn't make it a conversation about free will. And the two Calvinists are agreeing with each other. Jeremy says amen to Westminster Derek. Congratulations. Good for you. It's so funny how, like, you guys don't even know the other's a Calvinist. It's like, yes. It's like, exactly. No, I don't typically insult. I make jokes. Sarcasm. Yeah, we get it. No, but I'm not specifically talking about you, by the way. Westminster Derek. Paul had a robust conscience. I'd recommend reading about Paul and the introspective conscience of the West. It might be the case that Paul is not speaking of himself, but of Israel. Interesting. Just saying that I think they say the Son of Man is sort of a divine being of some kind, but not God. I got it. Okay. And when they're describing Jesus as freeing the Israelites from Egypt, they're saying Jesus. Huh. Okay. Got it. Yeah, I just disagree, I guess, with that Because it seems to be that it's the same individual. All amen that it makes 3 Calvinists. So 3 Calvinists went into a bar. Or did they? Well, descriptively, we can say the 3 Calvinists went into a bar. But since they were predestined to go into the bar, it was not of their choosing to go into the bar. And they got drunk. I'm just messing with y'all. Come on now, guys. You know I love you. What's up? What's up, Justin? They're coming out of the woodwork, man. Did I use that term properly? Yep, I did. So make that 4. Justin's in the house. Make it 4. I love it, Jeremy. That's good. That is good. Oh, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. All the Calvinists say this. All the ones around me at least say it. Art, we love you, even if you're wrong. Then I tell them, God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. I love you guys too, man. It's brilliant. Dude, shortcomings. You like that, huh? For what? Calvinists. My app's doing weird stuff. It just showed that there's like 21 people in here. Then like a second later, it was 11, 14. So... Sorry, guys. I'm checking some. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. The leader of the Russian aviation industry is Armenian. Good for him. Emil is a young Earth evolutionist. He believes in Darwinian evolution, but in 6,000 years. I'm a young Earth creationist. I think you're beyond a young Earth creationist. There's some other stuff that you believe that makes it very difficult to talk to you about some of this stuff. And Emil says I'm absolutely not. Stop lying about him, man. Mark 10:6-7. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. One time I heard an atheist guy, and obviously this is not going to be true of all the atheists, but it was just one of those things where I was like, I can't believe this guy actually argued this. But this guy was saying, doesn't the Bible say, whatever God has joined together, let no man separate? So why are there divorces? If there are divorces, that means God doesn't exist, because the Bible says what God has joined together, no one separate. Oh man. Essentially, God is not powerful enough, is what his argument was. And I was just like, people take some of these people seriously. Jerome is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Jerome, we've been live for an hour and 44 minutes. And we've been asking for you. We thought you went into hiding, man. I wore this for you. Come on, man. Of course I got the Liverpool top on. 7-0. 5. I don't have enough fingers on this end. 6, 7. 7-0. Jerome, we're 3 points behind Spurs for 4th place, and we got a game in hand. Bring on Bournemouth. By this time next week, it is very, very likely Liverpool will be sitting in 4th place. Jerome took forever to show up because he knew what was coming his way. Here's something. I cannot find any scripture that supposes a autonomous free will decision made by anyone. By the way, I don't know anyone, and there might be some people out there, that would hold to what you call an autonomous free will, where it's like nothing influences your actions or whatever like that. This is like a part of the free will conversation that's very important. When it comes to when somebody says free will, that doesn't mean like nothing can influence your free will. Especially within the religious sphere, and especially within the Christian sphere of conversation. This autonomous free will kind of like I just don't know anybody that argues for something like that. Jerome, I've already bragged about Liverpool for 30 minutes. You're late. Arthur, did you know Justin holds to dunking babies too? No. Justin. You're at a gaming tournament. Okay. Did you win? I think you just win the bet now, by the way. I'm prepared to come on your stream as we speak. I'm considering pretending that I follow European soccer so that I can. It's European football, but okay. Bunch of stuff about demons. Um, so, guys, let's take a vote. There's 10 of you guys in here. Let's take a vote. Should I accept Jerome's concession, even though Liverpool is not officially in fourth place? And then we end the bet, which means I don't shave my beard and I don't have to come end of the season. Jerome comes on the broadcast right now and apologizes. And then we just move on. Or should we just play it out till the end of the season and see what happens? Can't believe that now I'm hoping for Brighton to make top four. And I had you cheering for Spurs. Now you're cheering for Brighton. And you're in all sorts of tangles here, Jerome. He did say soccer. He said European soccer, which is really weird. I mean, it's American football as opposed to football. Any Huddersfield fans in here? Let's give a shout out to Christian here. Any Huddersfield fans? Yeah, Jerome, despite this being a Christian channel about apologetics, the first thing mentioned were football related and wondering why Jerome wasn't here to hear him gloat. Correct. Because look, the last time United lost a game 7-0 was in 1931. This is not, guys, this ain't basketball where you score 70 goals, 70 points a game, 80 points a game. This stuff doesn't happen very often. Not only is it the case that it doesn't happen very often, it doesn't happen very often to United, and it doesn't happen very often to United against Liverpool. Whatever the probabilities there may be, you math whizzes, you can figure it out. So I think there's some room to gloat. Absolutely. And considering that we're closer to fourth and Jerome and I have that little wager. Who is your favorite player in Liverpool? My favorite player at Liverpool is going to leave at the end of the season. So you tell me who it is. Shaving your beard is pretty alpha. Maybe even sigma. I'd be remiss if I hindered your chances to experience that. Interesting. So, Jerome, I think we're going to let this play out, by the way. In your decision for Jesus, how much would you say was of your free will and how much was on the influence of the Spirit? Jeremy, I feel like this is I don't like this question because it doesn't represent my position, I would say, properly. 100% of the call, 100% of the work is the Spirit, because the Spirit reminds the world of sin, judgment, so on. Um, and me accept it's weird when you talk about accepting something as being like a free will, whatever. Like, I'd say I accepted it, and that was my decision to accept it. It's just weird for me to sit there and say, oh, it was 80% of it or 50% or something. It's I accepted the gift that was presented to me as much as I accepted any gift that is presented to me. Now, it would be really, really weird. Yeah, you are fishing. And I caught you. It would be really weird for me, and let me, because this is typical from Calvinists that I've heard. Now, certain Calvinists, I should say, so I want to be friendly there. Is that, oh, if you accepted it, therefore you have something to boast about? And I kind of look at it and I go, no, I have nothing to boast about. How do I have something to boast about when somebody gives me a gift and I accept it? By the way, like, even beyond the religious kind of stuff, like, somebody gives me a gift for my birthday and I'm like, I accepted the gift. Yeah, look at me, I'm so amazing. It's like, who does that? And I don't think that's what Paul's talking about. So that no man boast. So yeah, I mean, the gospel was presented to me and I accepted the gospel. That's it. God did the saving, he did the regenerating, he did the message. I would even argue that God knew how I was going to respond to the gospel and made it in such a way where I was placed in those situations to hear the gospel in order to respond to it. That would be a lot more friendly to my theological views. He was here. But that's what you were saying, Jerome. You're like, you win. Let me come on and apologize right now. If you don't want to concede, don't. Did I misread you, Jerome? You wrote, I think you just win the bet now, by the way. Oh, okay, you wrote, I'm prepping to come on your stream as we speak. Sorry, I don't know how to read emotions if you're being sarcastic or whatever. Jerome says, I actually like Brighton. There we go. He's on the team beard. Don't shave it because it's dope. Jerome says, I feel like I have an obligation to watch this channel, regardless of how interesting apologetics may be on a given day. Well, welcome, Jerome. A lot of people take pride in things they possess and look down on people that don't have those things, even if they don't earn whatever the thing is, which is extremely silly, isn't it? Like, for me, I've never understood people being proud of their ethnicity. Like, and I mean this in the, like, so, like, in the sense that, like, you're better than. Like, I think I can take pride in my ethnicity, like, in the sense of, like, I feel good that people who are of my ethnicity do positive things and good things in the world and whatever like that, like that kind of pride. But for me to, like, think I'm better than because my ethnicity is, like, the dumbest thing on the planet, because I was born like this. I didn't, whatever. Like, I didn't choose to go in that direction. Obviously, now somebody could say, well, it's still work to maintain that or whatever like that. Some folks who are into that say that. Again, it's like, Why would you feel proud over something somebody gives you? And you're like, look at me. Arthur is sneakily using our shared love of sports to convert me. I'm not sneakily doing anything, man. Did you get that? Not sneakily doing anything. Paul, the way Paul put it is that to the Jew I become a Jew, and to the Gentile a Gentile, so that I may win them. So it's not sneaky. It's just like, first and foremost, I mean, before I even knew you, I enjoyed the sport, and I see everything in my life as an opportunity to preach the gospel. So, Jerome, not being sneaky, man, I'm being like extremely obvious with it. We can't know the heart. So, as a Calvinist in apologetics, every single person we meet should hear the gospel with kindness. Amen. As a non-Calvinist, I would agree with that, generally speaking. It would be worse if I conceded and then Liverpool throw top four away anyways. That's true. That's true. So don't concede, man. Hang on. Arnold knows me well, man. I don't think it's being sneakily. I'm pretty. It's pretty apparent. We all want to see you safe. Yeah, look, we are all of us are awful at sarcasm in text form. Then that means it's a personal problem, my friend. Sure, I'm not saying that it's a good thing that people do that, meaning looking down on others. Just saying it's common, but you sort of implied that if someone gets a gift, they wouldn't. Correct. Yeah, well, I'm assuming humility and proper rationality, I guess, in that. But yeah, people do that. You're right. So what I'm saying is I was responding to a common, not a common, I shouldn't say common. I was responding to an objection by some who are Calvinists, talking about people who aren't. As though the people who aren't are like walking around gloating that they freely chose the gospel and they're so good at choosing or whatever. They should, I think they should, considering long form content. This is considering long form content on YouTube. I think they should, at the very least, increase, not like make it unlimited, because you're going to get those people that jump in there and like copy paste gigantic stuff. You don't want that, but at least increase it by a little bit more. There you go, Jerome. Arnold has answered you. What I should have said is, what if I don't care about the prospect of being saved? Many non-believers apparently don't care. Correct. Many non-believers do not care. But I don't think that would change this conversation in any way, any significant way. What do you think is the biggest problem in Christian theology? I would say the Trinity. What do you mean by problem? Like difficult thing to explain? I actually think if by that I'm looking at like what's the difficult the most difficult thing to explain in Christian theology. I would actually say it's the hypostatic union, the dual natures of Christ. Like that is very complicated and extremely interesting. I'm not very sure whether the Trinity would be like maybe second or third would be the Trinity, but I would say the hypostatic union. There's a lot. I think I've spoken about this before as to why I think that's the case. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we just hit the 2 hour mark, and I think it's a pretty good place to end this. It's also cool that Jerome ended up joining us as well. Correct. I don't deny this, by the way. Okay, so what's the push factor then? I don't have much of a need for Christianity. Oh, you don't have much of a need for Christianity. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder whether you understand what Christianity is offering. The fact that you don't think you have a need for it. So the only thing of weight that can be put on me here is the afterlife reward. That's like saying I don't have a need for a job. The only kind of pressure that's put on me is that I would get paid a lot of money for it. Considering whether that analogy is actually pretty good or not. Correct. That should be factored into your need. Hey, I didn't mock you for being late. I was just really, really happy sharing my enthusiasm. What is Jesus currently doing? Ruling and reigning. Are we good, guys? We good to go? Dude, one thing I should say on the soccer end. I said it. Ban. It's very interesting. I've watched a bunch of pundits now, and talking about this game and what happened. Almost all of them are extremely harsh with Bruno Fernandes. It's crazy. Like I didn't expect that, but I haven't been very favorable to that because I don't think he has a good attitude. But it's been very interesting seeing folks be so harsh with him, blaming him on a bunch of stuff, which is whatever. Okay, I can't function properly right now because I'm so hungry. I should go eat. Guys, thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. Again, I should say, if you enjoy what we do here on the Apologia Center and everything that comes with that, go ahead and become a patron. That's patreon.com/Apologia Center. And we would love for you to be a part of that community. Especially, I will make some announcements in regards to when we're starting the Ecclesiastes studies for all the Patreon folks. So with that said, thanks. Appreciate you guys always interacting and being so gracious and fun and awesome in your questions. And the challenges you guys bring forth my way. Take care. God bless you. And I will see you tomorrow.